Creative intro! What's up, fam and cheese? We're out here and you might hear cars passing by in this video. That's because I saw this red door and I thought, that's a good looking red door. However, this door happens to be right by a highway. So, I don't know, I just saw it and I thought, I'm gonna record a video today by that door. That was my only reasoning. It looks kind of artsy, I don't know. You may be noticing that my voice is a little bit messed up compared to usual. And you might be thinking, Kyle, your voice is always messed up. It sounds messed up, I guess, if you don't like high voices, because my voice is very high. We're not gonna be talking about my lame spring allergy, no. The video topic, as you probably saw in the video's title, is sinning boldly. I have 3 points to make, so how about I just get right to it. Point number 1. So I guess I'll just get this out of the way since it probably sounds a little bit controversial to some people at first thought. What I mean by sinning boldly. So I remember first being introduced to the concept of this sinning boldly a pretty long time ago. We were in a random town on a random trip, going to a random church on a random Sunday, listening to a random pastor give a random message. But anyway, I vaguely took down this concept of sinning boldly, and I think I've come around to knowing what he was meaning again. If we really dissect the ways in which we sin in regular life and the ways to keep us from that, it sounds like the concept of sin has a lot to do with what's in our heads and what we do in the real world. So what's a way to keep us from the real world? Stay inside, don't do anything in the fear of sin. The concept of sinning boldly that I'm trying to get across to you is that that's not what Jesus wanted. If we were to stay inside and sit around and not do anything, there's several problems with that. First of all, you run into the sin of sloth, which I don't even need to talk about that. That's just laziness. What we see in the gospel is that God fully expects us to sin in our sinful nature. What the gospel is telling us is that Jesus made it okay to go out and not be afraid of that. The reason he did that is so that we would be mobilized into making more disciples for the kingdom. So Jesus wanted to instill in us a kingdom mindset. What he did for us is giving us grace to make us mobile to reach our neighbor and not sit inside, because sitting inside even can get us into all those other sins. So rather than looking at sinning boldly through the lens of, I can do whatever the heck I want now, sinning boldly is meant to be a pursuit. Sinning boldly means that you are being present and trying to listen and receive what God is trying to place in your life. Point number 2. Point number 2 is going to be the concept of sowing broadly. You see what I did there? Sinning boldly, sowing broadly. Tried to make a little alliteration. Sorry, that sounded really condescending. Now, sowing broadly is overall pretty self-explanatory. It's also explicitly written and shown in the parable of the sower told by Jesus. Mark 4 verse 20 says this: "Others, like seed sown on good soil, hear the word, accept it, and produce a crop. Some 30, some 60, some 100 times what was sown." So through that, we see that Jesus is trying to mobilize us once again. He's saying, don't be afraid of who you cast the seed to, how you cast the seed. Cast what God has placed on your heart, and cast it far instead of just targeting that one person and waiting. We rationalize our waiting with patience. Now, those are two very different things. Sometimes our waiting to sow that seed is us saying, well, I'm not good enough yet. Well, as you know, by sinning boldly, we're not really ever going to be good enough. It's the fact that Christ made us good enough to be able to sin boldly and sow broadly that we're able to, and we're encouraged, and we should be. And so that leads me into my last point of this video. Point number 3. My third point isn't an alliteration. Sorry to disappoint you. My third point is talking about non-judgment. Now, this is a very specific type of non-judgment. This non-judgment is aimed specifically towards the non-judgment for yourself or for your friends for what message they have on their hearts. You have to keep in mind that people, regardless of who they are going to be at completely different points in their spiritual walk than you are. That can either create frustration or disappointment in yourself. You could be frustrated at your neighbor for not quite being at the level you are, or you could be frustrated at yourself for not being at the level that someone else is. Both of these things are not the correct way to look at this. Instead, non-judgment. If you and your neighbor both are going into the ministry with the mindset of sinning boldly and sowing broadly, then you have to keep in mind that you're going to be at a completely different spot than your neighbor is. So maybe in this sense of non-judgment, you're being asked to give a little more grace. Maybe you're being asked to give a little grace to the person who's new in their faith and doesn't quite get it all yet. Maybe you're being asked to give a little grace to yourself. Do not be ashamed in your development. I guarantee even if your message is a basic one, someone somewhere has not heard that basic message. I heard that same message from someone once upon a time, and if that person didn't speak that message, that seed would not have been sown in my life and been able to grow. Now I might challenge you to take the next step in your faith, but that's besides the point. That's not judgment, that's encouragement. And that's a whole nother video. Speaking of this video, it's just about time to end it. Thanks for sticking around to the end if you made it this far. Whether you give this video a like or a dislike, thank you for watching regardless, and I'll see you in the next video. What was I thinking with that? It's a bunch of rocks. Ooh, I didn't memorize my verse. So in that, Jesus tries to paint a visual. Hold on, let me wait for that truck to pass. A lot of trucks, double truckage. I've had a twig on my hat this whole time. I think I hear someone behind this door. I don't know how sure I am about filming here anymore.